did we do? Okay. Hello everyone and welcome back. I hope that the internet goes well. I'm back in the office instead of out right by the router outside because my neighbor, who has not mowed their lawn in at least a year, has decided to do it today, and they have weed whackers and lawn mowers out today fighting the jungle that they allowed to rear up, and my hope is that we're going to be okay. Okay, so this week we went over digestive cancers and infections in the book. Did you guys learn anything that you want to share? What was like the number one takeaway that you got that you're really stoked about? Yay, Britt! You made it again! Very good. I'm happy to see you here. I'm having a smoothie which looked a lot more appetizing about 5 minutes ago. It has hibiscus tea, berry, and turmeric inside. And I think the turmeric just overpowered all of the red coloring. It's weird. Alright, hi Anna. Oh, okay, 5X Disney fans, I had your name in my head. I know that it's in there somewhere. I might have forgotten it. I didn't forget it, I just forgot which association went. Let me know what your name is again. And when you guys comment, if you have a YouTube name that's different from your name, go ahead and leave your name with me, because I like to refer to people by name. Okay. And then if anyone wants to sign up to be a moderator so that they can help to keep the comments PG, that would be nice. If anyone wants to do it. Equivocal Truth, Lindsay, hello. We got Heather, very good. Carly, that's right, thank you. Okay. Hello, Caitlin. I thought that said Catherine for a second. That's my sister's name. So, this week I was mostly appalled by how dirty meat is. But I don't know about anybody else. And yes, I don't know how it's Friday already, but here we are. Okay, is everybody ready to get started? Thank you guys all so much for showing up. Yeah, meat it is gross. Okay, so digestive cancers. This is, digestive cancers are a really big reason why a lot of people die. Thus, why it's in the book. I know that my maternal grandmother, she died of colon cancer when she was 48. So colon cancer is definitely a genetic issue that I have been concerned about in my life. And ironically, my mom is not. She's just on the bacon train and refusing to get colonoscopies. So I hope everything goes well for her, but you can't freaking guarantee. And speaking of colonoscopy, I think it's, Elizabeth Gilbert's partner just died of pancreatic cancer. That was really sad. I saw that last night. Had to have a few moments about that. But prevention of cancer, oftentimes a lot of these cancer corporations, really, is what they are. These disease corporations like the Susan G. Komen or other breast cancer awareness people or the American Cancer Society, they often say that screening is essentially the same as prevention of cancer. And there's a really big difference between screening and prevention of cancer. Screening is just looking for cancers that have already developed, right? Prevention is actually preventing cancer from developing in the first place. So screening, like mammography, like colonoscopies, those are not cancer prevention. That is potential death prevention, or finding out that you have cancer and then maybe stretching out the time between your diagnosis and your death a little bit more, but it is not a form of cancer prevention. And I think it's really smart to empower people to understand the difference between that so that they can be empowered to take care of their health. So we have a lot of prevention in this book, and that is what we need to focus on. Not necessarily just finding the cancers, but preventing it. Alright, checking in with the comments for a second. Can you still get cancer even if you do everything right? Yes, of course. There's we've talked about it a few times so far. in this live stream series where there's only so much that you can control as far as carcinogen exposure goes. There are a lot of things in the environment, like exposure to dioxins or free radicals or other forms of pollutants that can kind of cause a chain reaction in your body that can end up initiating cancer. And of course, in every single person's body on this planet, you get cancer probably, at least several times a week. Your body develops cancerous cells. The trick is that your immune system is, generally speaking, able to find those cancerous cells and kill them before they really become a problem. And we talk about that a little bit more in the How Not to Die from Infections chapter that we'll be going over in a few minutes. But certainly, there are debates 2 to 10% of cancer is purely genetic in that it was largely unavoidable. The rest of cancers are attributable to lifestyle factors. So we're going to control what we can. We are going to prevent as much as possible, keeping in mind that there's only so much you can do, but you can do a lot. So definitely wise to remain empowered as far as whether or not you can prevent cancer. Like, even though my maternal grandmother died at 48 from colon cancer, I am fairly confident that by modifying my lifestyle, I will be able to avoid a colon cancer diagnosis or death. Of course, we never know, but I'm going to be doing as much right as I possibly can. And on that note, we can get started on how not to die from digestive cancers. Okay, I'll check in with the comments one more time with you guys. Oh yeah, we got an E. coli breakout in romaine lettuce, and of course, the E. coli is not from the lettuce itself, it's from stuff that was sprayed on the lettuce, and it's so not fair that vegans can still suffer from that. Oof. Alright. Hold on 1 second, please. Okay. Carly Heather says that she was suffering from really terrible digestion for a long time. I feel you there. My digestion as a kid was just awful. I was constipated constantly, and I don't doubt that that is somewhat genetic and that I have that predisposition and to slow digestion, and I imagine that my maternal grandmother probably had that too. Okay. All right. So, did anyone pick up anything on this chapter that like really stood out for them? If you guys want to share that, I'll check in with the comments every now and then. Colon cancer comes from overeating meat. Yeah, possibly, largely. We don't know exactly what it came from, but Oh, that's a bummer. Someone says, my mom's cousin had leukemia and she refuses to change her diet because she doesn't believe in alternative medicine. That's a really big bummer. All right. Yeah. Well, I was just considering buying lettuce from the mainland because I thought it might be safer because of the rat lungworm here in Hawaii, but yikes. I guess not. Shannon says, my dad died from cholangiocarcinoma in 2000 at age 54. I wish I knew this stuff then. Yeah, definitely. Most definitely, man. Yeah, the chicken meat studies. Those ones are in, was that this chapter? Yeah, I think that was in this chapter, where chicken meat was actually more associated with colon cancer than red meat, which was surprising. All right. Let's talk about phytates, because so many people are scared of phytates. Don't worry, Lucy, I have a big phytate section where we're going to talk about that. Lots of notes on the phytates. Got Carly saying the acid reflux related to esophageal cancer is scary. Yeah, and that's something I don't think a lot of people realize who have the chronic acid reflux. They think, oh, I'll just take some Tums, whatever, but the damage is being done, and it's really increasing the risk of cancer. And on top of that, then you have issues with the acid reducing pills where, Tums and stuff, they have aluminum in them, and you can end up experiencing aluminum buildup and aluminum toxicity, which can lead to neurological issues, And then for the people who are taking stuff like Prilosec, the acid blockers, they're much more likely to suffer from both pathogenic foodborne illness, so getting food poisoning, and they're also a lot more likely to suffer from nutrient deficiencies because their acid is so watered down they can't digest or absorb or assimilate their nutrients as well as other people with robust stomach acids. Okay, all right, let's get started. We covered prevention is not the same as screening, so working on prevention. Almost immediately, we see that turmeric appears again in How Not to Die, and turmeric is such a recurring theme in this book. And like I said, I have my turmeric smoothie right down there. I'm going to have to nurse that as we go on. Try not to talk so much. Wish there was someone else I could let talk. Yeah, Carly says she's been working really hard in the last year on her gut health. Me too, girl, and I feel like I'm finally starting to get there. It took a little bit, but getting there. Okay, so turmeric appears, and the really encouraging thing about the turmeric in this section that I like, because it's about digestive disorders, is that everybody's worried about turmeric absorption. I've even gotten some comments on my What I Eat Wednesday or What I Eat in a Day videos where people are like, why do you even bother taking turmeric if you're not taking it with tons of black pepper and ginger and fats? And I do usually take my turmeric in a way that helps it to be absorbed optimally. But I'm also not incredibly super concerned about turmeric absorption. I'm also concerned about just getting turmeric inside my digestive tube, because it's just a tube from your mouth to the end point. It's just a tube, and if the turmeric goes in, it's either going to be absorbed or it's going to stay there from start to finish. And so when you take the turmeric, not only does some of that get absorbed into your bloodstream where it travels around your body and performs anti-inflammatory feats, but it also is exposed to the billions upon trillions of cells that are inside your digestive tract, where those can definitely end up becoming precancerous or cancerous. Oh, going back, Cass says, oh no, my dad takes Prilosec. Yeah, Prilosec isn't the best drug to be on. There are definitely ways that you can try to address GERD or acid reflux naturally, and it's great to do that first. Alright. Incubus says, I may have forgotten to read the required chapters this week. That's alright. I'm not going to test anyone. We're just going to talk about it, and maybe you can read some extras this week. Is there a possibility that this book could help people with eating disorders? Cara, this book is really not focused on eating disorders, but I do find it really I do find it really helpful for me. I'm in recovery from an eating disorder, have been for many years, and I found it really encouraging in getting me to want to eat foods and to want to nourish my body by really understanding how my body is reacting to these foods. So, I would say that it actually probably is quite helpful for people with eating disorders, just in encouraging them to eat and understanding why your body needs so much nutrition. And where can you get this book? I got all of my copies, you can see there. I got all of those on Amazon, and I'm getting ready for the in-person How Not to Die book club that I'm starting here in Hilo. So if you're in Hilo, you can come on down. And then Amazon does have the Kindle version as well, so you can literally go and buy it right now and get it on your iPad or your Kindle or whatever. Okay. Okay. So the turmeric goes into your digestive tract, and the cells in your digestive tract have it. I won't say they have it hard, but it's definitely a special case for the digestive cells where they do get exposed to a lot of stuff. Carcinogens that we take in, junk foods, all the wonky stuff in meat that we'll be reading about more and more throughout this book, as well as a lot of acids. And those can be stomach acids as well as bile acids, and those can definitely exert stresses on cells that can lead to precancerous or cancerous changes. So the really interesting thing is that, as we see in How Not to Die, that the curcumin and turmeric appears to reduce precancerous changes and may stall cancer progression for people who already have it. And like Dr. Greger mentioned several times, with something like taking plenty of turmeric or curry powder, like it doesn't have bad side effects, really, even when it's taken at high doses. So it's not like these chemo drugs that have ridiculous side effects and may or may not have any benefit. With this, it's like you just have the benefits, and that's a beautiful thing. And of course, all of us who presumably don't have cancer that we know of yet, it's really interesting to be doing this anyway. I feel like it's a great idea to be doing it even though we don't have these changes that we know of yet. Michael, I'm going to have to disagree with you and say, when you say that a good long water fast will break you of any disorder or addiction, that is definitely not the case for eating disorders. Definitely not the case. Hi, Matt. I hear you are watching, and you're married to the Lady of the Snowy Lakes. I almost remembered your name from last week. I'm so sorry. Yes, and Sarah, you are still a moderator. I totally appreciate that. Okay. And 5X Disney fans, she says, Carly, she says she loves reading this book, but it scares me since I'm the only vegan in my house. Yeah, it's definitely something to worry about. Now, also in the chapter about the infectious diseases that are associated with meat and meat exposure. Woo. Lady of the Snowy Lakes, Maureen, that's right. I'm going to write our names down. Okay. So not only was it associated with turmeric being able to do these things, but berries as well. All the polyphenols in berries were really associated with the cancer protective and precancerous improvements of precancerous changes. And it really did that like gross you guys out how they administered those berries? Like, just let people eat the berries. You don't have to shove berries up their butts. Please. So, and then the little interlude on page 65 about how the size of your stool. Why science? Why? I agree, Lucy. Why? How stool size matters. And it's talking about not only stool size, but also constipation. And, you know, it's like when I was younger, I just mentioned a moment ago, since we're sharing, this is a chapter for sharing, if there ever was one. You know, when I was younger and constipated, like, when I was able to go, it was traumatic, because it's like, it was big and compacted and painful, and then it's like, it ended up having plumbing issues outside of my body, plumbing issues from it, and it was like, just trying to take ginormous poos was not fun. And when I was really small, I remember going for over a week and then realizing, like, oh, I haven't gone to the bathroom in like 4 days. Oh, it's really gonna hurt next time I go, so I'm just not gonna go. And then it would end up being days upon days, probably even over a week. And then when I did, it's like, we need enemas, and it was a big deal. So anyway, what I'm trying to get at is that when I went, it's like, it was pretty big, but it was also really painful. And what he's we're looking of poo a day, at least. And now, I have to say, like, I'm so proud that I go at least 1 to 3 times every single day now, and it's quick, and it's easy, and it's painless, and I have not, has anyone weighed themselves before and after they go to the bathroom to see how much they're actually going? I haven't, at least recently, but I'm over the half pound. I'm pretty confident in that, feeling pretty happy. Yeah, and you know, people who aren't on plant-based diets, they're like, ew, gross, poop, I don't want to talk about it. And that's because, like, it's a really unpleasant experience when you're not eating enough fiber. You know, it says here on page 65 that Food goes through men eating plant-based diets in just a day or two, but this transit time takes as long as 5 or more days among those eating conventional diets. And the average was, for women on a conventional diet, was 4 days. And that's like, that sounds really familiar to me before I switched to a vegan diet, but it's like having all of that piled up inside you, getting, all of that poo water is being absorbed through your precious intestines, and it's just, oh. And constipation, it says right here, constipation is the most common gastrointestinal complaint in the United States, followed closely, I think, by GERD, but we'll get to that in just a moment. And so, what can help us with our constipation? I think everybody understands that beans are really great for using the bathroom. That's been like a famous haha joke for so long. But so many people, especially paleo people, have been bringing up anti-nutrients in the last couple of few years. And one of those anti-nutrients is phytates. And phytates get their entire own section because it's so important on page 66 of How Not to Die. Where, yes, phytic acid can bind to minerals like iron and calcium, and those create phytates. Inside your body, those phytates can form inside your intestines, or they can form inside your bloodstream. If they're in your intestines, you just poop them out without those minerals being absorbed. If they form inside your bloodstream, your kidneys will filter them out, and then you will excrete it via your urine. Now, that's why phytates and these anti-nutrients are associated with the potential for higher rates of kidney stones. But if your kidneys are healthy and you're well hydrated and you're eating an otherwise healthy diet, that's not something that most people have to worry about by any means. Now, people say, well, it binds to calcium and then you can't absorb your calcium or your iron, it binds to iron, and you're just going to become anemic and die and your bones will erode out from under you. And that just doesn't appear to be the case in the vast majority of the human populations who have been eating phytate-containing foods for the majority of their evolution. Beans, grains, seeds, nuts, all of those contain phytates. So, it's this idea of more is always better. And like Dr. Greger starts to mention on page 66, is that phytates, they do bind to iron, and it appears that they bind to excessive iron, and they can bring it out of your body. And again, we're thinking more is better, but with iron, as necessary as it is, too much is not a good thing because iron is extremely prone to oxidation. It creates these things called hydroxyl radicals, which is a form of free radical and can just wreak havoc throughout your body, causing lots of inflammation and damage, potentially even DNA damage that can lead to changes in DNA that can lead to the formation of cancerous cells and cancerous tumors. So, even though it's so important to get things like iron, it's still really important to not get too much of it because more is not always better. I would agree, paleo and keto diets are absolutely the worst diets of all time. And Michael brings up, he says, give blood. And yeah, sure, you can give blood if that's how you want to deal with this. You can suffer from blood loss from time to time, which is an admirable thing to do if it's going to the right place. But we could just prevent the iron overload in the first place. And we can do that by eating iron that is predominantly from plant foods. Now, iron from plant foods is non-heme iron. Do you guys know the difference between heme and non-heme iron? I assume that you guys already know. But let me know if you guys are aware of the difference between that, and we can just talk about it very briefly. Lo-Fi Hobby says, so if I'm anemic, I should avoid phytates. That's something that I think you should discuss with your doctor or plant-based doctor, but yes, theoretically you could limit your exposure to phytates, especially your exposure to phytates or like the tannins and stuff from teas, which will also inhibit iron absorption. You can limit those when you're having a high iron meal. So something you could even do is like supplement with blackstrap molasses, which is extremely high in iron, and eat that by itself, or even better with some like oatmeal, which is also high in iron. Some oatmeal with some high vitamin C berries, and then have that with some blackstrap molasses, and all of those will work together to aid your absorption and boost iron absorption. So you don't need, it's not that you need to avoid them, you just need to be wise about how you consume them. And there are certain things that you can do with foods like nuts, seeds, and beans where you can pre-soak them and then pour off the soak water, and then that'll get rid of most of the phytates. But you'll have to soak them for about 24 hours before you cook them. Okay. Yes, heme iron is in animal products. That's absolutely correct. Heme iron is sourced from another being's blood. Correct. Heme iron from meat. Non-heme iron from plants. Very good. Heme iron is only found in blood, right? Yes, to the best of my knowledge, it's in blood. I think it like gets built up in muscle tissue and stuff as well. But you know, there's iron in all of your cells, and your body is really good at conserving its own iron. For women of a certain age, we menstruate every month, so we lose some iron through our blood that way. The only other way that you would lose iron is through your skin sloughing off, because there's a little bit of iron in each one of your cells, and then from your internal intestinal cells sloughing into your digestive system. So that's two ways that you would lose iron on a vegan diet. Otherwise, your body is really good at recycling iron and reusing most of it. Okay, so let's see here. Cover the transit time we're in phytates. And, oh, just about iron, like the interesting thing too is that it's so associated with heart disease because it can turn into those hydroxyl radicals inside your blood and end up damaging your artery walls. So, like I said, it's important to get enough, but not too much. And if you focus on the iron from the plant foods, then you're getting the non-heme iron, and your body can easily decide how much it wants to absorb and how much it wants to leave. Okay? And for anyone that's worried about bone health, Dr. Greger did address that on page 66. Excuse me. He says, this belief stemmed from a series of laboratory experiments on puppies from 1949 that suggested that phytates had a bone-softening, anti-calcifying effect, as well as from subsequent studies with similar findings on rats. But more recently, in light of actual human data, phytates' image has undergone a complete makeover. Those who eat more high phytate foods actually tend to have a greater bone mineral density, less bone loss, and fewer hip fractures, right? So phytates appear to protect bones in a similar way that anti-osteoporosis drugs like Fosamax, but without the risk of osteonecrosis, or bone rot of the jaw, which is a rare and potentially disfiguring side effect associated with that class of drugs. So it doesn't, the rumor goes around, and this happens surprisingly often in nutrition. You get a rumor from a really old study. It's not corroborated. And then it just ends up getting regurgitated and recycled, and it just never seems to go away. But evidence indicates that it's not a problem. Cataclysmic centaur, that's cataclytic centaur, that's a good name. He says jaw-dropping. Yes, and that's the thing about Fosamax too, is that if you're on Fosamax, most dentists won't even work on you because there's a chance that your jaw won't be able to take the pressure of pushing on your jaw. It could just break. It happens. Ask a dentist. They won't do it. And it is. Fosamax is complete BS. This is fodder for another chapter or book entirely. But, Fosamax just stops how quickly your bones remodel. So your bones keep building up calcium and minerals more and more, which you would think makes them stronger because it increases density, but no, it actually makes your bones more prone to fractures, which is beyond ironic. So it's more important to keep your bones healthy and constantly remodeling. If you're worried about bone density, definitely start high impact exercises like, jogging or weightlifting, stuff like that. Okay? Okay. The interesting thing about phytates, now that we don't have to be scared of them, is that it appears that they inhibit tumor growth, which Dr. Grega goes over on page 67. I had a quote that I wanted to read to you if I can find it. Where do I start? Oh, yeah, and he mentions that it's not necessarily, studies are finding that it's not necessarily, that plants are protective because you're just eating less meat. It's actually, you are eating more plants. And that's what's important, is to get more and more plants into your diet as much as possible, right? Where's that quote? I can't find my quote, but the really interesting thing is that cancer tumors seem to like hoover up phytates, which is really bizarre. And then the phytates are able to target the cancer cells through a combination of antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and immune-enhancing effects. So it says, besides affecting the cancer cells directly, phytates have been found to boost the activity of natural killer cells as well, which we'll go over in the next chapter. And that can help to get rid of the cancer cells that are already alive. Phytates are also capable of preventing... Okay, let me think of how I want to say this. Phytates are also capable of preventing blood flow to the tumors. So anyone who knows about cancer knows that cancerous cells end up using a huge amount of blood, and part of why it's so difficult to remove cancerous tumors is because of their massive blood supply. So it appears that phytates can not only prevent additional blood supply from forming, but it also helps to get rid of the blood supply that's already there. So that's really awesome. It's like if a chemo drug was able to do that, it would be considered a miracle, and it would turn into a blockbuster drug, and I'm sure it would cost thousands upon thousands of dollars every year. All right. So since we already kind of went over the iron stuff, we'll move on to the pancreatic cancer, which is really sad. I know that there have been some really famous pancreatic cancer deaths, like the one yesterday, Elizabeth Gilbert's partner. Yeah, you can come in. Elizabeth Gilbert's partner just died yesterday of pancreatic cancer, and it's one of those where there are really no symptoms, so you pretty much find out, and then it's usually within a few months that you're dead, and there's not really anything that can be done. It's really sad. Do you want to come sit down?
Yeah, good for a second.
Okay, since we're talking about fun stuff. And as with all scary things, I think we just have to victim blame. And because most cancers are usually most pancreatic cancers are attributed to smoking, alcohol consumption, and animal fats. So we can limit smoking, obviously, that's a choice. I think it's really wise to limit alcohol consumption as well, and then do your best to limit animal fats. Hello, everybody. They're saying hello to you.
What's up, guys?
And the thing about pancreatic cancer is that it takes it's usually a very slow growing cancer, so it takes like 20 plus years to form. So, even if one of us, say, is like growing pancreatic cancer right now, there's a lot that you can do to slow the progression, as far as like dietary habits. Dr. Greger also went over poultry viruses and the potential for causing pancreatic cancer, which it's like cancer viruses in general are pretty scary as far as I'm concerned, and it's really sad because these people who are slaughtering the chickens end up being more susceptible to pancreatic cancer, as well as a host of other issues. But I really don't like, we were listening to a podcast the other day about these clean meats that are coming out, like the cultured meats that are coming out. And even though I would never eat it, I don't feel like it's a food for vegan. Definitely not a health food. It's like the more that we can switch over to clean clean meats, the better as far as I'm concerned, because it would take away risk factors like that, you know? When slaughtering chickens, they had a 9 times increased risk of pancreatic and liver cancers, and that just sucks. And then people who were just eating chicken, like 50 grams a day, have a 72% increased risk of pancreatic cancer. And just considering,
That's scary.
yeah, just like the type of cancer it is, you know, it's like it just sneaks up on you, and then you really don't have a chance. Like it's just a death sentence.
I don't have nightmares about pancreatic cancer.
Really, you have?
Yeah.
Had like an actual nightmare.
I've had multiple nightmares about it. Yeah.
I had a nightmare last night.
Ever since Patrick Swayze just passed away.
Yeah, this
was like,
all right.
No warning.
All right. So now we get on to esophageal cancer. So who has acid reflux? I definitely had it a lot when I was a kid. Like a kid, a teenager, a young adult. And then now I still get it if I eat rice with tomatoes or like tomato sauce. I'll get acid reflux.
Yeah. If I eat ketchup,
yeah.
I'll get reflux for some reason.
Look, it's very popular. Everybody has it. Oh man, yeah. It's chili, so bad.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Tomatoes.
UW Husky says she lost 90 pounds. She used to have it. Yeah, and so a lot of times there are trigger foods. Like Purely Soul says that she has dates that bother her. Like I'm tomatoes and tomato sauce. I tend to get it. It's usually acidic foods. Other things that really trigger it are high-fat foods because, I'm sorry to use this word, but dietary fat loosens the sphincter around your esophageal to stomach sphincter. It'll loosen it to allow acid to get up there. So it's good to limit the amount of fat that you're eating. I had her name written down. What is her name? Heather. Heather says that too much fat. Jesse says, what does it feel like? Acid reflux. It's like when you burp and then you burp up stomach acid and it burns the crap out of you.
Yes. Terrible.
That's what it feels like. And it's that consistent burping of acid that does damage to the esophagus and can end up triggering cancer. So it is one of the main causes of esophageal cancer, along with drinking alcohol, because alcohol is another one of those things. Like, it's a cytotoxin. You take it, it increases your risk of mouth cancer, tongue cancer, palate cancer, esophageal cancer, stomach cancer, colon cancer. So if you're still on the alcohol, I would recommend getting off of it, right? Oh, people are saying heartburn is more like you can breathe deeply without it hurting. Oh yeah, I guess there is a slight difference, but I'm not sure. Someone says Asian food gets in. Do I take apple cider vinegar shots? I don't usually. If I'm sick, I'll add it into my water or cold tea and drink it because it thins mucus, but I don't really like the cider vinegar by itself for no reason. I know that it has benefits, but I'm not into it.
Gonna get going.
You good? You gonna go pick up the babies?
Yeah.
Okay.
You need anything from Abundant Life? I was gonna get some red meal. Flour.
I'm not sure they have that flour there. You might want to go to Island Naturals.
Okay. Anything else?
I think so. Okay. It is good.
Bye, guys.
Sorry. Getting my back scratched.
You guys talk about phytates already?
We already talked about the phytates.
Oh, man.
Sorry.
I was studying about phytates. See you guys.
Robin Songle, she says that mint herb tea for heartburn helps. Carly says her neighbor got esophageal cancer. Everybody's saying bye to you.
Bye.
Heather says bye. Britt says bye. Carly says bye. Cass, bye.
Bye.
Shona, bye.
See you guys. Have fun.
Oh, goodness. So, what are we going to do? Like, how are we going to prevent esophageal cancer? Lifestyle, right? And making sure that we're getting plenty of antioxidants, right? Making sure that we're getting GERD all the time by limiting the fatty foods that we eat and the foods that contain cholecytokinin. I said that wrong. I know I said that wrong. It's a hormone that's found in eggs and meat, which also causes that sphincter to relax. Ugh. Ugh. Within 5 minutes of eating fat, your sphincter muscle at the top of your stomach relaxes. So gross. So, in addition to, I always knew that heartburn existed. I was like, oh, heartburn, that's cool. And then I turn the page, and then I read about hiatal hernia, which is apparently something that 1 in 5 people have been suffering from, and I'd never heard of it. And I guess this is just one of those things that no one talks about until you blow your own stomach through your diaphragm, right? Which is what hiatal hernia is. It's literally when you're straining to poop so hard that your stomach blows through your diaphragm. No judgment, but these are the moments where I start to really question my faith in the human body, like, wait, how are so many of us just walking around not herniated? And apparently many of us are walking around herniated. I feel the same way when I sit down and I watch TV, which is very, very rare. It's usually if I'm at a client's house or something and the TV's on and it's just commercial after commercial for like CPAP machines and plaque psoriasis drugs. It must be falling apart. I don't understand. So, the primary way, apparently, diabetes drugs, the primary way to prevent blowing your stomach through your diaphragm is through, just consuming fiber. And like we've gone over before, about 3% of Americans get the daily recommendation for dietary fiber, which blows me away. So, this is something that even vegans can deal with, this fiber deficiency, because it's totally possible to have a vegan diet that we think is, but we're eating, junk food and refined foods, and we're just not getting enough real fibers. So again, we come back to whole plant foods and how important those are, because it's like, yeah, pooping's nice and all, but mostly I don't want to blow my stomach through my diaphragm. I just can't stop saying it. I can't stop saying it. Dr. Greger even says on page 77, humans evolved eating huge amounts of fiber, likely in excess of 100 grams per day. And not only does fiber help us poop and not blow our stomachs through our diaphragm, but it's very absorptive. So it absorbs, went over that in chapter 1. It absorbs bile acids, which are also associated with the digestive cancers, which I don't think were mentioned in this chapter. They absorb excess hormones, which can definitely help with hormone balance. And, as it mentions here, fiber also binds to toxins, such as lead and mercury, and flushes them away. Pun intended. Of course it was, Dr. Greger. Of course it was. So, we probably evolved eating 100 grams per day. I don't know if you guys know how many grams per day you're getting. Mine obviously goes up and down depending on what I eat, but I'm definitely in the several dozen grams per day, oftentimes up to 100. I know on my days when I eat a pound of kale, I'm there. I am there. All right. And that will lead us to how not to die from infections. Does anyone want to add anything before we go on to the next chapter? Oh, we got some good conversations going. I haven't caught up. Ooh. Heather says her husband's aunt has diverticulitis and refuses to eat more plants. She's been in and out of the hospital for over a year now and still won't change her meat diet. That's just, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And in addition to blowing your stomach through your diaphragm, I guess it can go the other way, which equivocal truth reminds us your rectum can fall out, which happens too. Rectal prolapse. No meat. Hashtag eat fiber. Yes. Rectal prolapse is also a thing that I thank God don't have firsthand experience with, but a friend of a friend. Oh, sweet red-headed princess says, I checked my fiber on Chronometer and it was 80 grams per day. That is awesome. Okay. Kelsey says she's behind, so this is spoilers. It's not spoilers so much as it is just like priming your excitement for reading. Oh man. Carly says her mom has C. difficile, which we're going to get into shortly, which is a type of bacteria that is very antibiotic resistant. So, okay. I guess we're good. Lady of the Snowy Lake says she's taking a bathroom break. I guess I'll take this opportunity to tell you guys that I actually ordered 3 copies of the How Not to Die cookbook. A couple copies are for my local How Not to Die book club for the people there, but I wanted to do a giveaway for you guys. So you guys who have been in on this book club thing, and I know that so many of you have been so consistent, and I'm so proud. I know we're only on week 3, but I'm so proud, and I'm so enjoying this. So one of you guys, I'm going to be posting on Instagram after this live feed is over, and on the Instagram, you're going to go on there. I'm going to have, you know, like the rules and such things you have to fulfill in order to be entered, one of which is following me on Instagram. So make sure you are on Instagram and following me. Enter to win this cookbook, and then I will mail it to you. I might even write a sweet post-it and stick it in there, because I don't like writing in books. Like, you know, you might want to give it away someday. I respect that, so I'll put it on a post-it. And then, so go over to Instagram and just check that out. If you guys don't have this book, I know a lot of you already have this book, but it's I don't like recipe books, really. And I'm really tempted to keep one of these copies for myself. But this is a great recipe book. You know, you have lots and lots of beautiful pictures. So many of these recipes actually make me want to eat the food, which I don't often feel. And then at the bottom of each and every one, oh my god, that looks good. Quesadillas. At the bottom of each one, he has the daily dozen and how it fits into the daily dozen for the recipe. So awesome. I love this cookbook and I can't wait to give it to one of you guys. So get over to Instagram once we're done here. Now, if everyone has peed, we will start. Dang, now I'm hungry. I know, those quesadillas, man. I gotta make them. Oh, that looks good. Yellow rice and black beans with broccoli. Now I'm drooling. The cookbook is so good. So good, Robin. Okay. It wasn't me, Lucy. It was Lady of the Snowy Lakes. Sorry, Britt. Okay, so infections. Something I didn't know before I read this was that tuberculosis came from us domesticating goats. Now it infects one humanity. Measles and smallpox came from cattle domestication. Whooping cough came from pigs. Typhoid fever came from chickens. Influenza came from ducks. And then the cold virus came from horses. So a lot of what ails humanity came from the animals that we have domesticated in order to exploit and eat them. And so it's no surprise that now that we have these factory farms where the animals are just in these horrid conditions, that more and more viruses like, you know, SARS and swine flu are coming out of those places too. So, karma, yeah. Katie says it might be karma. Wow, okay. Sorry. Sometimes I get so distracted by comments. Okay. So the main thing that Dr. Greger stresses, and I'm so glad that he does because not everyone does, is that when it comes to infections, immunity is key. You know, it's all about how strong your body is and how capable your body is of standing up to these invaders. that end up inside your body. And if you start to study immunity at all, every time I start to look into how the immune system works, I always get, like 1 or 2 pages in, and I'm just like, oh my god, how does all of this work at once without malfunctioning? It's a freaking miracle. So, it is a miraculously complex system. On page 81, Dr. Greger had a quote that I wanted to read. Did I mark it? I didn't mark it. You dummy. Okay, there it is. Ah. People who were eating fruits and vegetables. There were 2 groups. One group was told to eat like 2 to 3 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. These were elderly people who were vaccinated against pneumonia. And it says, compared to the control group, people eating 5 or more servings of fruits and vegetables a day had an 82% greater protective antibody response to the vaccine. And that was after just a few months of extra servings of fruits and vegetables a day. So goodness gracious, imagine people like you and I who are eating 20 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. It must be so wonderful. Especially, like I mentioned before, on those days when I eat an entire pound of kale, because there's a whole section on kale, and this really scared me, guys. The average American consumes 0.05 pounds of kale per year. Well, I say I am not an average American, and I added it up, and I eat about 100 pounds of kale a year. Do you guys know how much kale you eat? Can you do the math right quick? And kale, of course, is a type of brassica, aka cruciferous vegetable. It's in the broccoli family, and it appears that brassicas, cruciferous vegetables, those in the broccoli family are able to activate AH receptors in the gut, in the immune cells in your gut, which activates your immunity and gets your defenses up and ready to react to foreign invaders. So that is awesome. All right, checking in. Oh my goodness. Kimmy says they abhor kale. That's abhor kale. That's no good. Equivocal Truth says, I'm learning to like kale. Yeah, I had to learn to like it too, for sure. Lucy's getting a few cups a week. Kelsey says, like, none. She prefers spinach. Well, girl. Robin's eating kale pretty much every day. That's awesome. Equivocal Truth has a slow developing relationship. I love that. Megan is new to kale. She tries her best. Absolutely. I know I'm not a big fan of the curly kale. I like the Laticino kale or Dino kale better. It's like flat and a little bit darker. And somewhere in this book, I remember Dr. Greger saying the Dino kale, the Laticino kale, is the most healthiest, which is not the proper way to say, I know. Ooh, Nikki says she mixes her kale with pineapple and she doesn't even taste it. Yeah, I have most of my kale in either my green smoothies, or every now and then I chop it up really, really fine and I put it into a salad and then like massage it with avocado and apple cider vinegar, and that is my favorite way of having it. All right. Everyone, a lot of people, it's not their favorite. I can't say it's my favorite either, but I eat it because it's so healthy. But I have noticed that, like, the more that I eat it, the more I want it. All right. Oh, you guys are too fun. Ooh, yeah, Lily Pad 3183. She says some tahini and lemon juice massaged on is really good too. Yeah, the tahini gets like that goddess dressing consistency. Ooh, so good. All right. So, and Dr. Greger does touch on this, but like, let's just think about how ridiculous it is that we eat and we take food, external stuff that's covered in bacteria, and we shovel it into our mouths, our feeding tubes, and then it goes all the way through our little tubes, and we're exposed to all of that crazy bacteria. And that's like an incredibly dangerous thing to do. It's like you're essentially risking your life every single time you eat. Obviously, we can be wise about it. We're not going to eat rotting stuff unless we're from Iceland. But, it's a really dangerous thing to do. So it is pretty cool that if you eat brassicas or cruciferous vegetables when you eat, it does tend to seem to activate your immune system so that you are ready to take on any potential pathogens or carcinogens or whatever you accidentally or on purpose eat. So this week, since I read this, I've been being extra careful to brassicas. So I had a big green smoothie yesterday, and then I have some broccoli sprouts on the windowsill right now, and I made a collard green salad last night. And let's see here, I had some red cabbage earlier this week too. There's lots of different ways that you can get your brassicas. Now there's a funny little interlude. It's called Pretty in Pink, right over there on page 84. And it touched on beets. And he mentioned beets too in the little bit on colon transit time about when you eat beets, it turns your poop bright red, which always never fails to terrify me. Always terrifies me. And then he mentions that when you eat beets, it also turns your pee pink because those protective pink compounds get into your blood and then they're filtered out by your kidneys, and that is why you end up peeing pink, which also terrifies me every time. And then he mentions that it's kind of like the same thing with garlic. And I've definitely found that to be the case, where, it's like people who eat a lot of garlic, you can just smell it on them because they're breathing it out. And a while ago, I was having some, lady issues, I was dealing with a bit of a candida overgrowth, and I was getting kind of desperate. So I was like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna put a garlic clove up my hoo-ha because I don't know what to do. I don't know what else to do." And it worked like a frickin' charm. Let me just say that it did its job, but it was like 5 minutes. Yeah, 5 minutes after it went up there, I started breathing garlic. I was like, I taste like a pizza. Really bizarre. Really bizarre moment. I'm glad I haven't had to repeat that often, but it's like, you do what you gotta do to take care of your hoo-ha, man. You do what you gotta do. So, with immunity, boosting, okay, now we have questions, of course. Garlic and the hoo-ha. I love garlic, but you just do what you. Heather asked, did it burn? Not that I remember. And what I did, I didn't mash it or anything. I took the whole clove, and then I made cuts in it about halfway through, just small cuts, so that it stayed whole. It didn't break up into pieces or anything. But I kind of exposed more of the surface, and the inside juices could escape a little bit, so to speak. And then I just stuck it up there, and it's like. It's a vagina. It's not gonna eat anything. It's not gonna disappear. Like, you don't have to worry about losing it. It's not gonna go anywhere. It's a vagina. There's an end point to it. So you don't gotta freak out. And it worked. It worked really well. Organic garlic would be necessary. It's best to do it organic. It's like a garlic clove. It costs what, 9 cents. Might as well just bump it up to 11 cents and get the organic one. For how long, though? I left that thing in there. I think I slept with it, so overnight, and then when I woke up, it was felt much better. That was a long time ago, though. So I'm not going to get into other questions right now because I want to stay focused. But I appreciate your guys' questions, especially about lady issues, which I have some videos coming out on the subjects, so feel free to leave more questions about that, and I will do my best to address those. Oh, Lucy says she tried that and it burned terribly. God, yeah, maybe it's not uncomfortable. Britt, it's not going to get lost. It's like... Britt is legit freaking out about this. It pretty much just stays where you put it. Okay? Garlic lost in the hoo-ha. That would be a funny trip to the gynecologist. Like, well, I was trying to make pizza, but... Okay. We need to stop talking about this. So, boosting immunity, natural killer cells, berries. Shona, I think that would be a great live stream idea. A lady question live stream. That sounds like a great idea. Okay, so natural killer cells were boosted by eating berries. So he brings it up here where people who do like long distance endurance activities, and we'll talk about it more in a minute, but they usually have a decrease after prolonged exercise. Now, when this group of athletes is asked to eat a cup and a half of blueberries every day, their natural killer cells actually doubled after the exercise. So it turns out that they get like a quadrupling of the amount of natural killer cells that they have. And those are the cells that cruise around your body and find things like cancerous cells and kill them. Thus the name. Wow, you guys are like freaking out about the garlic thing. We're gonna have to talk about it another day. I can't do it right now. And so, since there are more natural killer cells in your body and your bloodstream, that's something that would theoretically be able to prevent the formation or progression of cancer, right? And it appears that the spice cardamom is associated with increased natural killer cell activity. Now, that's just in a petri dish. We don't know if that actually works in our bodies, but again, with these spices and stuff, it's not like it comes with horrible side effects, so might as well. The thing, I haven't found a lot of stuff that I like cardamom in. The only thing that I really like it in is, say, morning time oatmeal, and I'll take some fresh cardamom and I'll just put like a few of the little seeds in there and then blend it up with my flax seeds or something, and I'll put that over my oatmeal. And now, of course, add, the frickin' cup of berries just so that it's super, super awesome. But that's definitely another one of those spices that I put on my to buy and to learn how to use list after I read this book for the first time. And I have been able to incorporate it a little bit. Every now I'll cook it. I'll put it in like a curry that I make or chickpeas that I make or something like that. But it's like a very strong, very distinct flavor. So, yes, berries are so expensive. Ooh, Katie says cardamom in chai is great. That's a really good idea. I gotta make my own chai. I made oat milk. I made fresh, hot oat milk a few nights ago, and it was so freaking amazing. So freaking amazing. We'll have to go over that one day too. So, after the cardamom and the berries were covered, probiotics. And this is a question I get all the time: is should I take probiotics, and will it help me help keep from help me keep from getting sick? Can't get my words out today. Good night, Shona. Should I take probiotics? Do I need them? Is it something that's necessary for me to continue taking, or should I focus on other things? And Dr. Greger in here talks about some studies where they did give people probiotics and they ended up having improved immunity overall, and that's really important. But my guess is that was probably a study that was funded by a probiotic company, and I'm not saying that it was incorrect, but I think it is correct. I think it's likely, but I also think that people who already have healthy gut flora going on, you don't need to worry about taking external supplements as much as you should worry about getting plenty of prebiotic fibers. So do you guys know the difference between probiotics and prebiotics? Anyone? Probiotics are the actual bacteria, right? Prebiotics are the fiber from plant foods that those good bacteria eat. So probiotics are the bacteria. Prebiotics are what the bacteria eat, right? You guys are getting it. Pre-feed pro, yes, that's good. Chrissy, I like that. Pre-feeds pro. Yes, thick fibers feed probiotic bacteria. So, for most people, it's like you can take a probiotic pill, and some of the biggest, most freaking high density, high dose pills you can get are like 100 billion probiotics per capsule. And you have like twice as much of that in a freaking tablespoon of your poop. And I hate to put it that way, but it's the truth. There are so many trillions of bacteria in your colon that taking a probiotic supplement is really kind of like piddles. Sure, if you've taken antibiotics or had your good bacteria or your gut health otherwise disturbed, sure, take a probiotic. It's a good safe bet. But if you're healthy and you're doing pretty well, there's usually no point in taking probiotics. There are some people who report, I just feel better if I take probiotics all the time. But most people, you'll be much better served if you spend that on eating prebiotic fibers from whole plant foods. And you don't need prebiotic pills. That's just fiber. That's literally just pills of fiber. So, yeah, I hope that clears it up. But the interesting thing that I don't think Dr. Greger mentioned was that the beneficial bacteria that are inside your intestines, they are in constant communication with the immune cells that surround your intestines. You know, since eating is such a dangerous thing, you're eating tons of bacteria. Some of that is pathogenic. You really need to have good immune defenses around your intestines, and sure enough, you do. And so there's a gut lining called the mucin, which separates the good bacteria from your immune cells so that they don't end up aggravating each other. But there is still communication between those good bacteria. It's been found that those good bacteria actually increase the amount of T regulatory cells, and the T reg cells are the immune cells that actually prevent your immune system from going into overdrive. And when your immune system goes into overdrive, you can end up having issues with autoimmune diseases. So, this is why gut health is so associated with autoimmune diseases, and why autoimmune diseases are associated with each other. Like, it would go something like poor gut health leads to overactive immune function, leads to an autoimmune disease. And then because you still have poor gut health and an overreactive immune system, you're more likely to develop another autoimmune disease, which sucks. They absolutely suck. And of course, most doctors, instead of focusing on gut health and training the immune system properly, they just focus on suppressing the immune system more. So, all right. Now we get on to the exercise. Yeah. I wish I would have known all this when I was younger. I feel you. I feel you. Okay, so since our talk last week, when we were talking about neurodegenerative disorders or brain diseases, and we were talking about Alzheimer's prevention, and I was talking about that podcast that Rich Roll had done with the authors of the Alzheimer's Solution. Did anyone go back and listen to that, by the way? Because it was such a good podcast. They were talking about how exercise is so important to brain health. And so I made sure this week that I got out several times and I did some good, strenuous exercise. Right? Yes, Lucy listened to it. I love that. I know, I want to read their book too. I can't wait. I have it on hold at the library. It'll come. But I went out and got some good exercise, got out of breath, was sweating for a while. But something that I've struggled with for years because I had the adrenal fatigue stuff was overdoing it and over exercising. So before I get ahead of myself, Dr. Greger talks about how just a little bit of exercise can really boost the immune system. So if you focus on getting like consistent bouts of exercise, he said even here on page 87, studies find that if you let kids run around for just 6 minutes, the levels of immune cells circulating in their blood increases by nearly 50%. So we don't know what that is in adults, but anyway. it appears that like small amounts of activity are really important. So just making sure that you're active and moving around, and as Lady of the Snowy Lake says, yes, it does increase mood. So, what was the other one? There was another quote, sorry, I wanted to read it. Yeah, so it was down on page 87 as well. He says approximately 95% of all infections start in the mucosal surfaces, including the eyes, nostrils, and mouth. So those surfaces are protected by antibodies called IgA, short for immunoglobulin type A. And so when you do moderate exercises, the amounts of that IgA really boosts. So like I was talking about a second ago, what tends to happen though is that people over-exercise or over-exert themselves. I know a lot of people who are like, the weekend warriors do that, or people now who are in the new year who are making themselves go to the gym or making themselves take up running, or all of the people that have set those goals for like, I'm going to run a marathon in 2 months, or I'm going to run an ultra marathon, and now they're just kind of killing themselves with exercise. They're actually suppressing their immune systems. And that used to happen to me all the time with the adrenal fatigue and the hypothyroid. I would try to exercise to control my weight, and I would force myself to like run and do so much cardio, and I would literally run myself into the ground, and inevitably I would get sick. Inevitably. And now I know I've been saying it for a couple months, so I'm not jinxed yet, but it might happen. I haven't gotten sick in over a year, which is such a big deal for me because I used to be on every 2 months I would get sick. Every 2 months, it was freaking miserable. And I slowly stretched it out to every 6 months, and now it's been over a year, and I'm so happy because I hate being sick. I hate being sick. Heather asks, can you moderately exercise if you're sick? I don't. Some people claim that it helps them feel better, but for me, it just feels like it taxes the crap out of me, and I can't do it, and I end up just, going right back downhill. If I'm sick, I rest the entire time. I don't do any exercise, maybe some super gentle yoga or something. Nothing aerobic, no weightlifting, nothing strenuous. And then I usually don't exercise for at least a week afterwards. But that's just me. Some people are different and force themselves to exercise and love it. But that's not me. Someone asked what Dr. Greger's new book is called. It's called The How Not to Die Cookbook. Yes, and it's a really good cookbook. We were just talking about it. I'm going to be doing a giveaway on Instagram. Okie dokie. So, there were some studies done on these whacked out ultra endurance athletes. I don't understand why they do it, but that's just me. They gave some of them I can never say this, chlorella tablets, which is a type of algae, and it ended up apparently helping them quite a bit to resist infection while they were training. Now, a lot of people ask me about spirulina and chlorella, and I personally don't take them. I have heard from Dr. Greger that spirulina can commonly be tainted or contaminated with neurotoxic forms of algae. So I avoid spirulina for that reason, also because it's really expensive. And then chlorella, I've never bothered taking it. I've never felt like I needed to take it, but I know that some people swear by it. I don't think it's a horrible thing, right? It just depends like how you want to spend your money and your resources and what you want to force yourself to swallow every day. So it's totally your call. There was this that little anecdote about the lady who had chlorella-induced psychosis, but you'll have to read about that yourself. Another thing that I was really excited to read about that these athletes were using was nutritional yeast, because apparently there's a special type of fiber inside the nutritional yeast, and it's also in brewers and bakers yeast, but let's just face it, I'm going for the nutritional yeast. And what did it do? The study found that after 2 hours of intense cycling, the number of monocytes, a type of immune system white blood cell, in the subject's bloodstream took a dip, but those who were given the equivalent of 3/4 of a teaspoon of nutritional yeast before they exercised ended up with even higher levels of monocytes than when they started working out. So, in case you needed another excuse to eat nutritional yeast, there's one. Now, I mean, they gave them a really tiny amount of nutritional yeast, and I know it's really easy for me to like pile it on. I have heard some things about possible contamination with lead from nutritional yeast, so I think it is another one of those foods where it's like, enjoy it in small to moderate amounts, and you'll probably be fine. But if you like go crazy and overload on the nooch, you might have a problem. Oh, Sarah says she might have a slight cold right now. She's so disappointed. I feel you there. It's always disappointing to be getting sick, but sometimes, it's just unavoidable. It's not like it's your fault, It just depends on immunity and what you're exposed to and all kinds of stuff. So, nooch for the win. Oh, Carly says nutritional yeast gives her migraines. That's terrible. Britt, you've never had nutritional yeast? Girl, you gotta get there. You gotta try it. Heather can't eat nooch. It makes her itchy. What? That makes me sad to hear. Oh, Sarah, she says she's sick now too, but her plant-based body is healing quickly. And that's what matters. Right? Okay, boosting immunity with mushrooms. Mushrooms are something that I've never been good at including in my diet, and I know that now all of these like super mushroom supplement teas and crap are coming out, and I really question how effective they are. But I'm more of like a I'll just eat mushrooms type of person, but I do struggle to like consistently have mushrooms in my diet, and I don't know why, because I love them, I enjoy them, but it's just I just can't get it. But it does appear that those micronutrients boost the IgA antibodies, and they can also be anti-inflammatory. So, it appears that they could be quite effective in boosting immunity without causing hyperactive immune system issues, which most plant foods seem to be pretty good at. And again, I do believe, I can't remember if he mentioned it, but it's like if a drug did what mushrooms were capable of doing, they'd make billions off of it. And yet, here we are. Okay. Do you guys have a favorite way of eating mushrooms? Because I'm seeing a lot of people saying that they love mushrooms. I assume that, like, we're all just water sauteing it. Redheaded Princess says, I eat steamed zucchinis and mushrooms before breakfast every morning. Wow. That's impressive. Do you, like, pre-steam them and then just have them on hand, or are you getting up in the morning and steaming stuff? What are my thoughts on dried mushrooms? I've heard mixed things about dried mushrooms. Obviously, a lot of them are preserved with sulfur and nitrates. That's not great. As those compounds can get into your gut and be metabolized into icky things. But if you can find a type of dried mushroom that's just literally just dried or preserved in a safe way that doesn't use sulfites or nitrates, then I would say great. They are really expensive. Ooh, mushroom tofu scramble. Megan says she puts a ton in French onion soup. Oh, that sounds really yum. Redheaded Princess, she cuts them up and steams them for 10 minutes, and then I'll have oats and smoothie or potatoes like half an hour later. Oh, that's cool. That's a nice little routine. Lakota Matson says, I definitely need some ideas. Every time I eat them, they're terrible, and now I can't stand them. Oh, yeah. I mean, if I make mushrooms, I usually saute them. You have to do them on a fairly high heat, water saute, and then put them in the pan. Don't overcrowd it so that they dry out a little bit and don't get all rubbery and stuff. Ugh. Ooh, Sarah has mushroom toast with cashew cream sauce. Dang, that sounds good. At Green Space, Dr. Joel Kahn's vegan restaurant. I want a vegan restaurant. Oh, that sounds. Oh, you guys are good. Mushrooms with A1 and onions put in a sandwich. Absolutely. Oh, you guys are good on the mushies. All right. So that'll bring us to food poisoning. And I was reading this and I was like, oh, thank God I don't have to worry about it. But of course, there's all the E. coli right now on romaine lettuce, which we've heard about. And, you know, E. coli outbreaks on spinach and sprouts are common. And it's just cross contamination issues. Um, I haven't, let's see here, have I? I got food poisoning a few times when I was like a carnivore, right? And then I haven't gotten any severe food poisoning since I've been vegan, but I did notice that when I was living in New Zealand and I was doing the raw thing, I would often um, not wash my veggies and stuff just because I was like, oh, I want the B12, and I was like that raw foodist. And I wouldn't wash the veggies very well, and I guess something got in there, and I would be eating it, and then I'd get halfway through my salad or something, and I'd just be like, huh, I'm gonna spew, and then I would just get up and like projectile vomit. But then I was fine, so I don't know what to say. Oh no! Equivocal Truth says they got E. coli 0135 as a vegan. It's no fun. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's the antibiotic resistant one, yeah? Yeah, please stop putting poop all over our produce, please. Amen, Carly. Amen. Yeah, and I mean, this is another thing about the clean meats and the cultured meats. Like, if we don't have huge factory farms, then we won't have huge lakes of poop and pee that they then want to use to pump all over fields of lettuce that then vegans eat, and it's no. But I'm honestly really excited about the clean meat ideas, and you know, like the cultured meats where the meat is like not an animal, it's grown inside this crazy incubator, and then it's clean, you know. They wouldn't need all of the antibiotics, which they talk about. Dr. Greger mentions at the very end of this chapter the post antibiotic age. You know, if clean meats replace factory farming, which it's looking like it's just kind of like a guaranteed that it's going to happen at some point in the near future, that we wouldn't have to worry about the antibiotics and all of the freaking fecal bacteria that you read about in this chapter getting onto meat and then cross-contaminating things. Obviously, I wouldn't, you know, like I said, I wouldn't eat it. It's not something that's for me or for vegans, but I think it's pretty realistic to understand that most people are never going to stop eating meat. People are not going to care enough about animals to be kind and stop eating meat. So if we can like switch the type of meat that they're eating, I would be all for that, to a type of meat that doesn't use animals. Like, sounds great to me. I also listened to a podcast recently. It was Eat for the Planet with Neil Zacharias. It was a recent episode with a guy who wrote a book about clean meat. And they were saying that not only are they doing clean meat, but now they're doing, they're growing milk, egg whites, egg yolks, and leather without using animals. So we're coming to a new age. We are coming to a new age, and I'm excited for it, where animals won't be used anymore. Oof. Yeah, Kelly, I wouldn't want to eat the clean meat either. It's just kind of like, bleh. Monster meat. Yeah. It's weird. Like, it's weird. But, you know, people who are driving through McDonald's, they don't care. They really don't care. Zebra says, I think cultured meat might be a good way for us to still feed carnivorous rescued pets as a transition away from owning animals. Yeah, that could definitely be possible. Um, Geek out on science for sure. They say the leather I can stand behind, the rest is meh. I totally understand that. Like, I'm not excited about consuming any of these products personally, but if we can eliminate animals and people can still destroy their health however they want to, I'm definitely in support of people destroying their health without hurting animals, because they're going to do it anyway, as far as I can tell. Okay, so, I don't, like, if there's anything that you guys want to share, but it's just like salmonella, fecal bacteria, antibiotic resistance. I was really kind of weirded out with the urinary tract infections from chicken. That was really creepy. And then, oh goodness gracious, the Yersinia infections in pork. Just to quote, studies have found that within a year of contracting Yersinia food poisoning, victims appear 47 times more likely to come down with autoimmune arthritis, and the bacteria may also play a role in triggering autoimmune thyroid condition known as Graves' disease. And that really makes me think, not only people who eat pork, who eat bacon, but people who live next to these hog farms, like we saw in What the Health, they went out to North Carolina, in rural North Carolina, and they were talking to some of the neighbors of these hog farms, and it was just horrible. It's freaking horrible. And to know that this stuff is floating around, and MRSA comes from all that stuff too, and a lot of it is antibiotic resistant. I can't wait until we get away from all this. So, the C. diff is another one that's like a common hospital infection, but now it is. Now, what was it? Oh, I don't have it written down, but C. diff is now not only common from hospital infections or from taking a ton of antibiotics over and over again, but now it's also coming from pigs, and it's infecting the pigs, and it's hurting the pigs as well. So, C. diff is also one of those bacteria that can get inside of your intestines and just kind of hang out and wait for something bad to happen. Like another pathogen comes along and makes you sick all of a sudden, and then the C. diff will bloom. And the thing that really scared me about the C. diff was Dr. Greger says, you've probably seen advertisements for those alcohol-based hand sanitizers that advertise that they kill 99.99% of germs. Well, C. diff falls into that 0.01%. Don't call it a superbug for nothing. And then at the beginning of this chapter, I'll end on this note, Dr. Greger talks about how Oprah was sued by the National Cattlemen's Association, and she was sued because she was having a conversation with Howard Lyman, who wrote Mad Cowboy. And I don't know if any of you guys have read Mad Cowboy, but it's genuinely quite terrifying to start to understand prions and the fact that prions, which cause mad cow disease, they just cause proteins to kind of turn themselves inside out. And they're not killed by any sanitization methods that humans currently have. So, a lot of surgical tools are sanitized and then reused, as they should be. It's like we don't want to be super wasteful, but that kind of sanitizing won't kill prions. Tattoo needles, tattoo guns, if those were reused, you could get prions. And then, of course, eating it, prions really easily cross seas-bound barriers, species barriers. So it's like, humans can get mad cow, so can sheep, so can weasels, so can dogs. It's just a matter of consuming infected tissue. And we're still not even really sure about how they're spread. There's a possibility that it could spread through milk. And since most cows in the United States are killed when they're 4 or 5 years old, at the very latest, those are dairy cows, yet cows don't really exhibit symptoms of mad cow until they're over 6 if we're not testing animals, which most of the time we're not testing animals, we're not testing carcasses, we don't really know. So, sobering to think about. And on that note, we can just do, if anybody else wants to add anything, but, yeah. I'll take a couple minutes for questions, but before we do that, for next week, I went ahead and figured out a syllabus for us. So this next week, I'm going to have us read Chapter 6, How Not to Die from Diabetes, and Chapter 7, How Not to Die from High Blood Pressure. So just those 2 chapters. They're pretty big, heavy chapters, so we'll get through those, and I'm sure it will be fun since so many people do not understand insulin resistance. Okay? Shona says, I studied prion proteins last year at uni, and my professor said that we might be due another outbreak because when people contract prions, some people will develop mad cow immediately and some later. Yeah, it can take up to 30 years. So we actually, it's called Creutzfeldt-Jacobs disease in humans, and it happens, and we don't know. The last outbreak was, what was it, like 10 or 12 years ago? But the thing is that we don't actually know the extent of that outbreak or if it's continuing because we're not testing. So it's hard to say. And then, of course, still in the United States, we grind up the carcasses of dead animals and then feed them back to animals. So, okay. Goodness gracious. Don't prion diseases come from cannibalism, like mad cow diseases was caused by cows being fed beef with their food? Yes, that is a primary cause of it, but like I said, prions can cross the species barrier quite easily, so it's easy for one species to infect another. It doesn't take any significant mutation, if any, I don't think. I haven't read it in a while. Okay, well done. Oh dear lord, now that my smoothie's been sitting here for forever. Yeah, diabetes is going to be a big one next week. Okay. Alright, well, unless anyone has any last minute questions or comments that they want to add about this week, we will just plan for next week, and I will go and get ready for the local How Not to Die book club, which I have starting tonight. We're just going to be going over some basic stuff and getting the syllabus done. So, Purely Soul says, back to the probiotics. I work at a health food store. What would you recommend to say to people looking for probiotics? I always recommend dairy-free, but I've said this before in my probiotic videos that there are dairy-free options. A lot of them say dairy-free, and they were usually grown using dairy, and then all the traces of the dairy were removed, and it's just like the pure bacteria. So those can still be labeled as dairy-free. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're vegan, but this is one of those cases where I would rather people be healthy than adhere to a stringent vegan diet, or a stringent vegan lifestyle. So if people want to get vegan probiotics, that's their choice. I really struggle finding really high quality, good vegan probiotics that are high dose and worth it. So what I usually do is I go for, I can't remember the brand off the top of my head, but like the raw Garden of Eden or like Garden of Life raw biotics is a good brand. If I'm going to be taking probiotics, it's usually because something has gone terribly wrong, and so I'll get like the Critical Care with the super high dose, 100 billion per capsule, whatever, the highest that I can get. But mostly I recommend to people, make sure that if you're taking probiotics, make sure you're eating plenty of plant fibers too, because you gotta feed them. Heather asks, thoughts on kombucha for gut health? I personally don't think that kombucha is a reliable way to inoculate yourself with probiotics. The amount of probiotics that'll make it through your digestive tract into your intestines is unguaranteed and probably limited. There's also like the source of the kombucha. You can brew it yourself, in which case um, contamination can happen. But like I brewed my own kombucha before and it was freaking delicious. But I think of kombucha more as something fun and yummy to drink as opposed to like a health tonic. Um, it's also full of sugar, which can promote the growth or overgrowth of yeasts or other pathogenic bacteria. And then there's the case of most of the kombuchas that you buy from places are externally carbonated. You have no idea how they were brewed. Like I know the local place here in Hilo, they brew in giant aluminum vats. And kombucha is supposedly detoxifies heavy metals, and so it's pulling frickin' metals into the kombucha. Like that's kombucha brewing first day of class, first page. Don't brew kombucha in metal, and they're breaking that. And then they brew it, and then they carbonate it. And so by the time it's in the bottle, I consider it virtually useless. It's like basically soda. Um, if you want to brew it yourself, go for it. But I mean, I wouldn't expect it to be a super awesome health tonic, right? Kimberly says, do you eat fruit in the morning for your gut? I eat fruit in the morning because it digests really well, and because I like it. And it's nice and light and helps me to feel really hydrated. I don't eat it specifically for, gut health, but it definitely does contribute. Oh, man. Lily Pad says she used the Renew Life probiotic brand. It's a great product if anyone's looking for it. Thank you for sharing. Renew Life probiotic brand. Sarah says people talking about diabetes prevention and reversal is frustrating. I totally agree. Someone said a second ago that their grandma said that 2 bananas was too much sugar, and I had the same experience with my ex-boyfriend's dad. He had diabetes, and it was like uncontrollable. He was having to constantly increase the amount of insulin that he was taking. His doctor was really concerned, and I was doing the raw food thing, and I'd had hypoglycemia for so long, and the hypoglycemia just turned around when I switched onto a high-carb, low-fat diet. But he just kept up with the, oh, nope, you can't eat that many bananas, and if you eat a banana, it has to be a green banana, because otherwise there's too much sugar, and you're going to get diabetes. And I was just sitting there, and I was like, where'd your diabetes come from, Patrick? Bananas? I don't think so. Okay. Alright, so we're at 98 minutes. I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for coming along for another week. Again, next week we'll be doing the chapters on, diabetes and... I forgot, it's chapters 6 and 7. I will have remembered by next week. I will be posting on Instagram for the How Not to Die cookbook giveaway, so make sure you head over there and do that so that one of you guys can get this awesome cookbook. It's so wonderful, and again, thank you guys so much for showing up and participating. I love it. I love all your input and your questions and everything you have to add. It's just wonderful. And Hypernova, yes, I hope you get that notification soon. Or sooner, too. Alright, so. I love all your comments. Okay. Thank you guys. Again, it's been real. I will see you all next week. Make better choices. Take care of yourselves. Bye.